This video focuses on monitoring your client's job search activity. And as most videos in this series, I start out in the client caseload profile. Essentially, when you log into the coach account, this is where the data is presented to you. And it's really important to think about the job search behaviors that are required to be effective in the job search itself. And what we're really looking at in some of the behaviors, of course, are the OAIs, and we talked about that before in terms of identifying the opportunities, the applieds, and the interviews. And these are really ratios, so there's not really a set number, a perfect number. It's more of a balance between these opportunities and applied and interviews. What happens many times is that clients identify opportunities, they apply to them, and then they may wait by the phone and they stop generating opportunities. 80% of the job search is really all about identifying opportunities and filling that funnel again and again. And we know that if we just look online or we look in newspapers or more traditional sources, this is not necessarily going to occur. So they have to be really creative and tap into the hidden job market and so forth. So again, it's about managing that ratio, looking at the logging into the system, which again is another behavior, believing that they're tapping into a methodology. And what SnagPad is, besides just a learning tool, a strategic tool, is a management tool, keeping track of those opportunities and knowing when the next steps are and knowing things as simple as what resumes or cover letter are attached with opportunities. So it's being on top of it, and it's using a system. It's a behavior that's really important. And then simple things like how many job leads are identified, how many applications or opportunities are applied to, the number of interviews that are taken, job offers, and ultimately jobs that are accepted. So these behaviors are really critical to understanding not only what your caseload is doing, but individuals within that caseload, obviously. So when we go into the coach dashboard, again, it gives another set of metrics, or more specifically, behaviors of what the client is doing. It reinforces the notion of when's the last time they moved a job opportunity, that if they're not moving a job opportunity, that's very problematic in the job search process. It looks at the ratio between job A's and job B's, that a strategic job search thinks about the job A but conducts a parallel process by also identifying job B, making sure that the client is clear on what competencies or what skills and abilities are required for that job A, so they can look for other opportunities where they can build upon those competencies, so ultimately they become more competitive for the job A that they're looking for. Then it looks at the pad itself, the various columns on the pad, and how a client is moving job opportunities from column to column within that typical hiring cycle, whatever it may be. And so it's recognizing that, job cards in opportunity column are going to be a lot more plentiful than job cards in the job column. So just recognizing that filling that pipeline of opportunities is really important and so forth. How long they've been in the system. If they've been in the system 57 weeks and they haven't found a job, there's obviously some barriers, or there's a great distance from where they are to the labor market. So how do we shorten that gap, and how do we keep track on it? If we know that an individual, just by looking at the data, has been unemployed for a while and is not moving towards employment, we could take all the other data available to us and start to make or come up with ideas as to why that may be happening, and then discussing with the client and so forth. And then the other types of things are keeping notes and so forth. One thing that's built into the system is what's called today's meeting page. And if you're doing case conferencing, if you're going to be meeting with clients at a particular time frame, whether it be over the phone or in person, you can easily pick out a report that really highlights the key sort of areas that you need to focus on when the client is making that transition to the labor market. So really the first step is to identify what clients you're going to be meeting with, and then click on print today's meeting page. As soon as you do that, what happens is it produces a PDF. And a PDF, as we know, can either be printed or it can be emailed. And that's the beauty of it here. So as I print out this meeting page, it brings up the list of those 3 clients. So you can see I have 3 clients that I'm going to be meeting with or connecting with or talking about. So it gives me obviously the name of the client. It gives me their job A, again, reminding me about what opportunities they're actually looking for. It looks at their OAI. It looks at, the ratio between the opportunities applied and the interviews. It looks at the number of job A's and the number of job B's. If there is a discretion in the ratio, that it's not a 1-to-3 ratio, it throws up a exclamation point. So it knows it's something that I'm going to speak to the client about, or case conference about a particular client, because depending on that client, you're looking for that ratio of 1-to-3, and you want to find out why that's occurring. It also looks at the number of weeks that the client has been within SnagPad. And again, if it's over 10 weeks, an exclamation point comes out, just to highlight the fact that this is more of a long-term unemployment scenario, and how is this affecting the client motivationally, psychologically, etc., and so forth. So something that I've got to address and be aware of. Of course, this is a demo set of data, so I probably wouldn't let that go on for as long as it has in this case. But in some cases, the reality is that maybe you have multiple barriered clients and that it's going to be difficult and they're going to be in a long time. But again, it keeps track of that number of weeks that the individual's been in the system and so forth. So the other component is just job sources. What are the types of job leads that the client is going in this case? 7 of them are unknown: careerbuilder.com, through the coach, which would be me, a family member, indeed.com, job bulletin, which was from the agency account, plugin, LinkedIn, and so forth. So I can really get a sense as where they're looking at. In some cases, there may be more geared to online sources, and we know that could be problematic, especially that online job sources are very competitive and so forth. So I want to have a blended kind of approach to looking for job leads and the types of sources that a client is tapping into, which could be an ultimate reason why an individual has been unemployed for a period of time if they're focusing on one source. So it quickly gives me an idea of what's going on. And then it also looks at the last job card movement. Again, if an exclamation point is there, it ultimately means that the individual hasn't moved a job card in a while. And so why is that? What are some other factors that are impacting their willingness, their ability, their motivation to move a job card to the next column, or even add a job card to the pad itself? And then finally, it's the notes section. So any notes that I've put into the system, they'll kind of be displayed here, and they're date stamped as well. So it really gives me a good indicator as to what's actually going on with that particular individual, and it's all done simply through a PDF. So when we get back to the system, it just simply allows us to do that. So monitoring job search activity is really about monitoring the job search behaviors. And with SnagPad, what it allows you to do is collect real-time data even when you're not with the client. So it's all about ensuring that, one, they're entering data into the system and that they're following up with it. And there's really 2 reasons for doing that. One, obviously they're entering data into the system because it's keeping track of their job search. Whatever system they're using, they need a system that keeps track of that, because they can apply to many opportunities and they may not be able to recall what resumes or cover letters they submit, whatever it may be. And the second part is being able to access this data when the client is in between sessions with you. Maybe you only meet with the client once every week, or once every 2 weeks, or once every month. With SnagPad, it presents information at your fingertips at any time. So even when the client is not in your office or not with you, they're putting they're keeping track of their job search, and you're having access to that data that can on the fly easily communicate with them about some of the things that you notice that it seem to be working well and some that are not. So it's all about monitoring the job search activity. It's all about ensuring that the clients are exhibiting the behaviors that are effective and lead to a successful job search. And the only successful job search for most clients' eyes obviously is a job. So anywhere where you can identify patterns or issues with their ability to move forward is important, and through SnagPad you can easily do it. So monitoring your client's job search activity happens with SnagPad because of the data that you put in. And at the end of the day, it's not really you entering any data whatsoever. It's the client entering that data so that you can feed off of, and that you could see and look at and try to determine what sort of things that are going on. There's obviously some highlights within the system that alert you to that, like on the dashboard, coach's dashboard, there's exclamation points. In other cases, it's just as simple as looking at the pad and seeing what sort of patterns that you see and commenting on some opportunities that kind of stand out to you and offering some advice. So monitoring the job search activity is really critical. Understanding what the job search behaviors are and being able to give feedback is what's going to lead to your client and ultimately your caseload success.